Welcome back, everyone. It is day 5 of my favorite Crafty Things 2014, where I share my favorite products. I am talking about heat embossing today. Heat embossing is one of those things that many crafters remember as their favorite aha moment. The first time they saw heat embossing, they were just wowed, and I think it's making a huge comeback because there's a lot of great products. Now remember, before we start, that there are links in my YouTube description below, or over on my blog, where I also have some shopping discounts and some big giveaways, so be sure to check that out. Now, there are a few must-have tools that I cannot recommend enough for heat embossing. There's not many, but the one that is a must-have is the Milwaukee heat gun from Hero Arts. Now, this costs a little bit more than other heat guns, but that is because it is so much better of a product. It is much better quality, it's very safe, and it gets hot super fast, so you don't end up warping your paper as much because it heat embosses quicker. I love this thing. I've had mine for probably 15 years now, and I've never found anybody who's been unhappy with theirs. This is a great tool, but you can use any heat gun you may have. Another tool that I think is helpful is the powder tool from EK Success. This puts a bit of baby powder or some sort of powder onto your work surface so that when you stamp on it and then add embossing powder, you don't get embossing powder like sticking where you don't want it. It's kind of like an anti-static. So this keeps your project nice and clean. So I really recommend the powder tool, and you can just wipe it off when you're done. And by the way, that powder tool lasts you forever. You never need to get another one. Okay, next is Versamark ink. This is just a good clear ink that is nice and crisp, and it's perfect for heat embossing. It's a pigment ink, so it stays wet for a while. So after you've stamped it, all you have to do is shake on whatever embossing powder you want onto it, and then heat set it. So this is like your glue for your embossing powder. Really, it's just a sticky ink. Another very helpful tool is the versamarker, which is a versamark pen. Say you do some heat embossing and you don't completely emboss image like I did on my tea here. You just use this versamarker pen, and it's got a fine tip and a brush tip, and you just color some of the sticky ink right in the area where you messed up, and then add the powder and heat set again. So this is a great way to fix your heat embossing. The ink in this pen is just like the ink in the ink pad. You can also do doodles or stripes with this pen. It's inexpensive, it lasts a long time, and it's really helpful for heat embossing. Now there's one other ink pad I really recommend. I don't recommend black embossing powder because it's kind of tricky to work with. It can be messy. But if you stamp with the black VersaFine ink pad, which is a very crisp black ink, and it stays wet because it is a pigment ink, you can get really nice black heat embossing. So this is how I recommend doing black heat embossing instead of a black embossing powder. I just think the results are great and they're nice and crisp. There's one last simple tool that I think is helpful for heat embossing, and that is a fine, dry paintbrush. This is good for brushing away any powder that may be in areas you don't want it. I use this same brush for my watercolor. It's a nice fine brush. I'll link to it, but any little brush would be great. Now there are two powders that I think are must-haves when you're doing any kind of heat embossing. That's a good clear powder and a good white powder. Let's first talk about the clear powder. The nice thing about clear powder is you can use it with Versamark ink for a shiny tone-on-tone look on any color cardstock. Or you can use clear powder with any colored pigment inks, like this green Avriel that I'm using here. I use my clear embossing powder so much that I keep them in these large containers, which I'll talk a little bit about later on in the video. Now here's a little tip for heat embossing of any kind. I like to get my heat gun really good and hot by pointing it out in the midair for maybe about 10 seconds before I bring it to my paper. That limits the amount of heat that is put to my paper and prevents the warping. Okay, so this is the clear embossing powder I use, the Hero Arts Clear. There are many great clear embossing brands out there, but this is the one that I've been using for a long time and I really like. And of course, there are many great techniques that you can do with clear embossing powder. Now the other must-have embossing powder is white. I also have this in a big container because I use it so much. I also like the Hero Arts white embossing powder. I've had great luck with it. It's nice and detailed, and it gives me bright white results on colored cardstock. Now if you find you don't perfectly white heat emboss your image, you can always fill it in with a white Uniball Signo pen. That's just a little trick that I use. Okay, as for other favorite embossing powders, I have quite a few that I use often because I like to do heat embossing, but I thought I'd share a few of my favorites here. Now for a silver, I really like the Hero Arts Silver embossing powder. It's nice and crisp and a very true silver color. Now if you want something a little bit different, you can try Ranger Liquid Platinum. This is a silver color too, but has more of a warm tone to it, so kind of like a champagne color. Here, I'll bring in the silver from Hero Arts here to the right so you can compare. So you can see the liquid platinum from Ranger on the left, just as a little bit warmer color. I think it's a beautiful alternative, and I actually use both of these. Gold embossing powders are a little bit more tricky because there are so many on the market and they all have a little different tone to them. My favorite is the Wow Gold Rich. It's just a good true gold that's nice and crisp. And Wow embossing powders are very inexpensive, so that's a nice perk too. Now, a unique powder that I'm really liking lately is the Wow Silver Pearl. You can see it looks pearly when it's heat embossed on white. Now, if you do it on black, it looks almost silver metallic. But if you heat emboss it on a color cardstock, it looks a metallic of that color. So basically you get like a tone-on-tone metallic look. It's very, very beautiful, and it's great for in somewhat of a pattern on a background that's not too distracting. Then there is the Judikins Iridescent Sparkle. This is my favorite clear embossing powder with sparkle in it. So here I stamped it with a colored pigment ink and put on the clear sparkle powder. Here's what it looks like with versamark on white. It's hard to see there, but it's just lots of sparkle. It's really beautiful in real life. And check it out on black. It's just gorgeous. So if you're looking for clear sparkle, this is definitely my favorite. If you really like those sparkle powders, I recommend checking out Ranger Black Sparkle. It's hard to see here, but this is a black powder, which I usually don't like to use, but it has different colors of really fine glitter in it. So it really picks up the colors of whatever project you're creating. It's a really fun, unique powder. I also like Wow Metallic Sparkle Platinum. So this is like a silver sparkle, but it has a little bit of that warmth to it because it's the platinum color. It's really gorgeous and perfect for holiday cards, or if you just want to add a little bit of sparkle to your project. Now this next powder is one that I've used for many years, and I think it's just gorgeous. This is the Ranger Verdigris embossing powder, and it's like a teal color with some coppers and golds in it. It's beautiful in a big solid image. I recommend checking out all the other embossing powders like this that Ranger carries. They have some great mixes. Okay, now for a completely different kind of embossing powder, I am crazy about the Wow Ultra High powders. I like the Ultra High Gold, Silver, and Clear. Now what's different about this is the powders are really big. They're big granules, so that when you melt them, you get kind of a raised heat embossed image. So it has much more dimension. See how big those little granules are? This can be tricky. I'll show you how to use it. But what results is a higher raised embossed image. So let's go ahead and show you how this works. So I've just stamped with Versamark ink. You want to move fast because you want to keep that ink as wet as you can so that it holds these big granules. So this is the Clear Ultra High. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle it on, and you'll see that it's kind of not wanting to stick. So if you keep your paper flat and pour some on it and then tip it off, and don't tap it too much, you'll be good. Now it doesn't look so hot there, but don't worry, it all melts together and it'll work out just fine. Now by the way, these Ultra Highs come in small little jars, or you can get really big jars. I recommend the big ones because you can use these a lot. So what I'm going to do here, the trick is to heat the paper from behind, so you're not blowing off the powder. You can heat through the paper, and then once it's started to melt, you can bring your heat gun to the front. That prevents you from blowing all those big powders away. And check out that raised look that you get. Let me do a comparison. On the left is just a regular clear heat embossed, and on the right is Ultra High. And you can see the dimension in all of these. The dimension is much higher with the Wow Ultra High powders. Keep in mind, this isn't good for a super detailed image because you might lose some of that detail with those big granules, but these powders are beautiful. Now if you're one of those who wants to have embossing powders of lots of colors or unique textures and effects, there are many out there. First of all, I would recommend Ranger. Ranger has a lot of great colored embossing powders. I really like the Wendy Vecchi line. They have some beautiful colors in that line. Here are some of the examples of these colors. You could just stamp with a colored pigment ink and put clear embossing on it, but nothing beats the crispness and great results that you get with a colored embossing powder. So I encourage you to check out their line of colors. Another line of embossing powders that is great are the Wow embossing powders. As I mentioned, these are very inexpensive. Most of them are in small jars like this, but you can get bigger jars if you want to. They have lots of solid colors and then tons and tons of embossing powders with special effects, different kind of pearls or different kinds of glitters. So I would encourage you to check out all the options that they have. When I use some of these powders, I like to do it over a coffee filter to prevent making a mess. This is one example of a Wow powder. It's actually a pink powder with blue glitter in it. They have a lot of unique options. And when you heat set this, you'll see the fun effects that you can get. So I encourage you to check out powders from Ranger and Wow if you're looking for more options. Now a lot of people ask questions about storage. I have a few different ways I store embossing powders, and I've done a video which I will link to here, but I'll talk about some of them here too. For the two powders I use more than any, the clear and the white, I have a few jars in each of these larger containers so that these are easy to just grab and scoop the powder on and get going. So I have these larger containers, which I'll link to below. Any kind of plastic container would work. Now in the lid of this, I actually have a cable clip. There's a cable clip stuck to the inside of my lid that holds a spoon so that I don't have to fish into my embossing powder to get my spoon out every time, or I don't have to keep it separate. You could also stick this little cable clip on the top of your lid, on the outside of the lid. But I found that these little cable clips, I'll link to the ones that I use. I use a large clip or a small clip depending on what size spoon I use. This really has become very handy for me. Now, I don't know that you need a large container like this. I have a few jars in each of these, but I just find that for clear and white, this is really helpful for me. Now, there is a medium container too that I really like. I have my Wow Ultra High in here, and maybe this is a good option for you for your clear and white. In this one, I have a small clip stuck to the inside of the lid, and this holds a little mini spoon, and I'll link to all of these products. These little small clips are meant to hold cable cords or Christmas lights or something, I don't know what, but they're perfect for just snapping a spoon and holding it there. Again, you could just throw your spoon in the powder and dig it out every time, but I find this saves me a lot of time. You could find any kind of containers that you want at any dollar store, whatever, but I find these that have these flaps that kind of flip up are much better than trying to peel off a lid that's kind of stuck on too tight. Now these are what I use for my most used powders. For my other favorites, I have these small containers, and this is what I would probably recommend for most people. It holds one or two jars, just one is in here and that's fine. And I have a little cable clip on the top and I just snap my little spoon in there. Mini spoon you can get at an ice cream store if you want to, or I'll link to them below. But they come in packs of 3. These containers come in packs of 3 and they stack up nicely, and they're perfect for storing embossing powders. I know a lot of people have tried this system and have been happy with it. Now for the other embossing powders that I don't need containers for, I just work on top of a coffee filter with the little spoons. That way I kind of keep my embossing powders tidy, and then I can pick up the coffee filter, kind of fold it in half, and pour the powder back in place. Then I can go tap any excess of the powder that's still in the coffee filter and reuse it a few times if I wanted to. So there you have all my tips and tricks for heat embossing. Please be sure to check my blog for big giveaways and shopping discounts. I'll also have links to the products that I used in my blog post or in the YouTube description below. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more of my favorite crafty things.